Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I am also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we are going to go over why avoidants cancel plans, why they avoid seeing you, and how to get them to be more willing to actually see you in person, okay? Unfortunately, this is very common, especially in the first year or two of a relationship. I would say after this time, a lot of them don't do this anymore, but it still can happen, okay? They are normally open to rescheduling, not all the time, but some of them are, but they tend to cancel last minute. So you might see where they are still seeing you, but they often cancel the first go around. So let's say you guys plan to see each other on Thursday night. They might cancel you and say, hey, I'm sorry, something came up, but can we do tomorrow? And they usually are okay with the reschedule, but some of them might avoid seeing you in general. And so we're going to talk about those reasons and what to do. But I think it's first important to realize why they do it. And we're going to break this video up into a couple sections because of how comprehensive this topic is. Interesting enough, it is comprehensive. The first section is we're going to talk about why. The next one is when to be cautious to know it may not improve, and probably you might have to walk away or have a more serious conversation. The next section after that is that there will be improvement. So you see signs of improvement. And the very last one is what to do to get out of this cycle, okay? So the very first one, going into why they cancel or avoid seeing you, is avoidants struggle to have you integrated into their life. So integration into life is the barrier, okay? Avoidants may take time to integrate a partner into their life because they tend to be very structured individuals. Adding a partner into their life requires significant adjustment that other individuals may not struggle with. And so they may have to reestablish their routine and schedule to accommodate to you. And sometimes that makes them feel like they're losing a part of themselves. And so they're battling with their desire of autonomy while still wanting to integrate you, which is why you might see the pattern of them canceling you and then replanning, rescheduling with you another time that fits better with their schedule. And it can come across very selfish, and it's because it is. They're very self-centered individuals. Their orientation is very self-centered because when they were younger, them thinking about other people actually got them reprimanded. Or when they thought of other people, they ended up getting it wrong, or they were told don't be this way, don't be so emotional, don't show that emotion. And so they suppressed all the tools they needed to think about another person. They suppress that empathy. They have it, but it's very suppressed. Or they may have a parent that is extremely what they might label as overbearing, to which they were not allowed to have independence. So they don't want to ever feel that way again. So they push back against it and they reframe their own mind so that they never have to be in that place again. And so it's a trauma response, right? It's based on the fact that they were very neglected as a child. And so that's why a lot of this happens, okay? The next one is the difference in scheduling preference. This is another barrier. Avoidants may prefer to spend time together on weekdays rather than weekends, often because they use their weekends to decompress. Some of it have it the flipped way, but you will see more often than not, avoidants sometimes do avoid spending weekends together because they really want to have that time for themselves. Sometimes they don't even go out. They're just by themselves on weekends. And so that's very important to recognize. It could be their preference. And if that's the case, I'll mention how to do it later, but I'm going to quickly say it here. Mention what day is best for them and you guys stick to that day and they will probably stop canceling. The next one is discomfort in social situations. Some avoidants may feel uncomfortable with specific environments, okay? So this one might be your home because they might not really feel in control. They might be uncomfortable around your family. Some of them might be uncomfortable with maybe you have a roommate. Maybe they don't like your roommate, but maybe they don't want to admit it because it makes them feel weak. And so they're bearing that feeling. And so instead what they do is they just cancel and they may reschedule, hey, come over to my house instead, or let's meet at a coffee shop. They don't like that. They may not like certain situations like going to a bar or something like that. They might not feel like that is comfortable enough that maybe they want something a little bit more calming, more intimate, more romantic. And so they feel uncomfortable with the setting that might be picked. That's one too, okay? The next one is that they're afraid of being judged. And so they may be struggling with something, an emotional state. And if they show up and talk to you at that emotional state, you may see them as vulnerable or weak. You might see them as emotional. You might see them as someone who can't handle themselves. And so they worry that their emotional state might not be pleasant for you. And so they try to cancel because they think that'll help you out because you don't have to deal with the burden of their emotions. They can handle it by themselves. And if you're with a partner who is struggling with a long-term emotional situation, they may avoid seeing you for months because of this, unfortunately, but it does happen, okay? And the last one is they're trying to be considerate. Maybe they had a really long day and they don't want to appear distracted when seeing you. And so they might cancel to reschedule to a time where they believe they might be more fully present, okay? And so obviously this is not a very fun experience. You want to see your partner, but they keep canceling on you, or they haven't seen you in weeks or months, right? What do? Well, here are some things to be cautious of before we jump into what you do, because I think this is very important. If you see that your partner is canceling with vague requests, reasons, whatever, and there is no follow through and not much conversation in between, this might be a bad sign. Now, if you guys are talking day and night all the time and they're canceling, this is obviously they still care about you. They just are struggling with their own fears of seeing you, but they like you. That's why they're talking to you. But if they're not having any follow through or any communication, and they're also canceling with you, there's like almost no emotional commitment in this relationship. Why are they canceling and they're also not talking to you? That one can be pretty frustrating. A lot of you guys have a situation where your partner might not see you much in person, but they still talk to you every day. See, that's a good sign. But if they're not doing that, or there's no follow through to reschedule, that can be frustrating. So that's the next one. They don't offer to reschedule, or when you offer to reschedule, they give a vague response. Let's play it by ear. Let's figure it out when we get there. And there's no communication throughout. This could be an issue. Now, if this is happening and they still communicate with you throughout, texting, showing you videos, pictures, whatever, they probably do want to see you, but it's taking a little bit longer for them to get there. But if there's neither of those things happening, something to be cautious of, okay? And so what about the signs for improvement before we jump in how to fix this? If you see that your partner communicates clearly, that's a good sign. They are open, that they're not ready, they feel uncomfortable about this. The next one is if you see that they reschedule quickly, right? They cancel, but then they reschedule the very next day. Or they mention, hey, let's do this day instead. That is a sign that they are committed to you. They're just very rigid and controlling, honestly. The next one is they apologize sincerely and they value your time. They tell you that, they apologize, okay? The next one is they follow through on the new plan, whatever your plan is. Maybe their truth is that they don't want to go to your house because they don't like your roommate. And so your new plan is, okay, let's be honest, you're probably going to have to compromise, but maybe you guys never hang out at your house. You're always hanging out at their house. Avoidance, I've noticed that that's pretty common. And so if that's the case, they're always hanging out at your place. They want you to hang out at their place, and that's a new plan, and then they follow through. This usually helps them a lot. And then they stop canceling. And so that's a good sign, right? The next one is that they are honest about the feeling as to why that they canceled. Like I had mentioned, clear communication, but sometimes it doesn't even have to be clear, even though, yes, I mentioned that it needs to be clear, but we also want it to be honest, right? Clear communication is part of it, but we want honesty. So an example could be if they say, my grandmother's in town and I have to see her, and you know that's not true, right? That doesn't make sense. Or my buddy needs help moving into his new place. There's always an excuse. That's not a good sign. But if they're honest and they say, I just don't want to, I really don't want to, I'm just not in the mood, I don't know why. But they're trying to tell you the truth. I don't know why, or I can't tell you why, but I just don't want to. I don't feel it. They're telling you the actual true feeling of what they're struggling with. And that's very important. Those are signs of improvement because it brings self-awareness. So what can you do? Communicate, right? It's essential to bring up your concerns in a respectful way. It should be clear, respectful, and I would think that sometimes bringing concrete examples can help. I notice that you cancel a lot, especially when we are going to hang out on weekdays. Is there something wrong? Is it because you have work stress? Is it better if we hang out on weekends? What can we do so we can meet in the middle, okay? The next one is timing matters. It's very important to ask the individual, the avoidant, what time they prefer to meet, and you be open to being flexible because avoidants need that personal space. And honestly, a lot of avoidant individuals, they're not good with compromising. And so it's very likely you're going to have to make more adjustments than they are in the beginning stages. And this is an example of that. You're going to have to be more flexible with their timing. But what ends up happening is they become more appreciative of you doing that, and then they're more likely to meet you halfway. So you do get that reciprocation eventually. The next one is, in general, being patient. Change does take time. If you're seeing that your partner was not initially responding well to conversations about cancellation, When you revisit the conversation, sometimes what happens is they're more open to it. And so be patient that it is a process, and that's unfortunate. And some of you guys might not want to be in a situation like that where you're waiting for a basic expectation. At that point, it might be better to date somebody secure. But if you guys really care about your partner and you feel like you want to make this work and you believe there's progress and change, this is a good method. Initially, they might not respond well. But as time goes on, give it a little, maybe a couple months, and then revisit the conversation and they're more open to it, okay? The next one is concrete evidence. I brought this up a little bit in the communication, but I wanted to be a little more clear about it. It's very important that the evidence sometimes comes across logical. Be careful to not make it sound like you're looking down on them. But I noticed this one really helps avoidance. And I've worked with many of them, and most of them have had this struggle, the canceling issue, in the beginning of stages of their relationship. And sometimes they don't realize how bad it is. Like, genuinely, they didn't recognize how often they were doing it. And sometimes if you say it, they'll deny it. They'll say, I don't cancel that much. Like, you're exaggerating. And so sometimes that concrete evidence is very important. So you can say, I'm not upset, but I hear what you're saying, but I promise you, I have been, paying attention to how often you cancel because I wanted to make sure that I'm getting it right. You truly have been canceling about 50% of the time. I wanted to make sure that I'm not overreaching or overreacting. So that's why I kept track. It's for no other reason. I wanted to manage my own feelings, but it really is 50%. We can do the math together. And I'm not saying this to hurt you or put you down. Actually, I wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. And I was wondering, how can we make this happen less often? I'm okay with canceling here and there, but to be completely honest, 50% is a lot for me. Is there anything that we can do to make it where you don't cancel as often? I'm willing to work with you, right? So you communicated while giving concrete evidence, okay? So these are some of the variables that's going around when an avoidant is canceling, all the details of it. And I know it was brief each point, and I'm going to continue to make videos that have more detail about some of these points. I've already made one previously, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a guide so you guys know what to expect, okay? I hope this video is helpful. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.